My name is Leathur Rokk. Welcome to my channel. If you want to see how I dye my hair, stay tuned. And no time like the present, I'm going to show you the dyes that I'm using today. Now these two look like they might be the same color, but they're actually not. They're the same company. It's called Kiss Express Color. And this one is called Real Purple. And this color here is called Intense Purple. Now I put a sticker on one to differentiate it because I'm going to put them all over my head. Another color I'm using is from Punky Colors, and it's called Purple. They're both the same there. And I'm also using Splat in Lusty Lavender, which I really like a lot. And I'm prepared with scissors, got my rubber gloves on, and I've also got some wet ones to clean up any spills that might happen. Alright, now usually I do my hair a little bit in the back before I start filming at the same time, but this time I'm actually going to attempt to do it in real time, so bear with me if this takes a while. Now, I want this particular color to be closer to the front, so I'm going to begin by applying some. I'm going to let gravity take over by applying to the center top and putting it down. I never like to have a flat look of just having one color all over for the most part. I really like to have gradations of color, different shades of purple. I think that it gives more of a dimensional look, and it's also harder for other people to duplicate, because so many times when I see purple hair depicted, or even I see it on other people, usually it's one flat color, and no wonder people ask if they're wearing wigs and stuff, and I really get kind of annoyed when people think that what I'm wearing is a wig. I can't help it that so many people who do this just slap on fake hair instead of actually doing it. I mean, it seems like half the time whenever I admire somebody's really elaborate hair, somebody with really long hair, or somebody with braids down to their butt, and I find out that it was actually a weave or something. And that's really kind of a bummer, because I'm thinking, if I can be real and I can really do this, why don't other people? I hope I don't wear too much of this. But that's why I have a long sleeve shirt, because that way less dye will come on my skin. Because it gets kind of disconcerting when the skin stains better than the hair does sometimes. Now if you do this, it's really a good idea to put newspapers down, because this stuff is very runny. The stuff in the squeeze bottles, this is runny. The stuff in the Splat envelope is very runny. The jarred dyes are thick like toothpaste, and they at least won't run on you. Now I hope this goes without saying that with these dyes you don't mix them with peroxide. You just put them on your hair that must not only be pre-bleached, it has to be bone dry. Because if this hair was, say I just got out of the shower and I didn't blow dry my hair enough, if your hair is even the slightest bit damp, the colors will take on a transparent quality. Because I made this mistake once, and I'm sure not going to do it again. If you're going to go through the trouble and the expense of buying the dyes, you want them to take. So now the nice thing about the Punky Colors, when I open those jars, they actually smell like grape. I don't know about all the other colors. Actually, I have two shades of green and I have a shade of yellow as far as Punky Color dyes, and I suppose I could sniff them to find out again what they smell like, because I haven't had green in my hair. I had a phase of about 5 years where I had green bangs, And that was kind of because I was into a band called Typo Negative, and their lead singer, well, the band is no longer now because their singer Peter Steele passed away of a heart attack, but he was really fine, and I'm sure I wasn't the only Typo Negative fan. They had green in their hair for a while, but that was just a brief phase of 5 years, and it was just my bangs. And I had bangs, and then when I cornrowed my hair, I decided to let my bangs grow out because it was easier to braid hair that was kind of longer. But what ended up happening is the bangs became side pieces, and it gave the illusion that half of my hair was green. So I actually had to, the hair wouldn't really wash out, and I ended up having to remove it using vitamin C crushed up and mixed with shampoo, which is a really great way to remove semi-permanent vegetable-based dye, which is what these are. Now note I didn't do a patch test first, or a strand test or anything. A lot of times they do recommend you do this because of the slight chance of an allergic reaction, even though I don't think that that's really a possibility with these because these don't contain coal tar dyes. I don't trust looking in the monitor. I would really rather look in the mirror. Now I have a broken mirror piece on my wall. At one point I'm going to have to go near that to use that and handheld mirror to see the back of my head because I can't see too well as it is, and I mean I could see okay, but I certainly can't see behind my head without. When I was growing up, my family had a medicine cabinet that had a three-way mirror on it, and so I was able to see the back of my head when I was old enough to start bleaching my hair. And I started bleaching my hair when I was 15. So that's how long I've been doing this. Okay, here's the other purple shade. With these dyes, it's a good idea to use a little bit more rather than a little bit less, because it really is important to completely cover your hair. Cassie, how you doing? Cassie, you're so pretty. I'm not going to pick you up now. You'll be purple. Cassie. I hope she doesn't have to use her litter box because I dumped everything out, and I mean everything, and I cleaned it with pine sol and water, and I'm letting it dry, and I'm hoping to not have to fill it up with litter until the morning. Cassie tends to get flibberty gibbets. If you don't know what the flibberty gibbets are, that's what I call when a cat acts like they did speed or something, and they're jumping around and they're batting at things and they're playing. And usually anytime after 4 o'clock she starts. And a lot of times 4 o'clock is about my bedtime. Unless, of course, I'm filming a YouTube video, in which case my bedtime is even later than that. But there's times when I'm ready to go to sleep and she is obviously not. And it was just keeping me up. I don't want to say it was driving me crazy, but it was annoying me enough that I put her in the carrier and closed her in for the night. Now, in the kitchen, I have the towel, which was her bedding, soaking in soapy bleach water to sterilize it. And when it's clean and dry, I'm going to put it back in there so that she has something nice and padded so she can be comfortable. I actually ran around for a couple of days with my hair like this just to have a different look. It would have been nice to be dyed ready for the last concert I went to, but I realized I wasn't going to have time, so I just went. I went in my garden earlier today, and it was just starting to drizzle rain. I wanted to see what I could harvest because the temperature has been cooling off, and I wanted to see what I could pick. But I knew that I was going to hopefully do my hair today. I thought I was going to start dyeing my hair a lot earlier in the day than I was, but we had some disturbances outside. There is a young druggy lady in our neighborhood that screams at the top of her lungs, and she runs around, spins like a whirling dervish. And I've had to call the police a number of times for somebody to come with the ambulance or something and help her, because I couldn't tell whether it was, I'm sure it was bad drugs and probably mental illness too. But not only that, but the screaming is really not necessary. And a lot of times this was well after midnight when she does this. And I would like to think that people living in their apartments or their homes or whatever have a right to some kind of quiet. And when somebody is disturbing other people like that, they really should be taken away. And if the police know that she has a problem, I would think that they would put somebody on a mandatory 72-hour psychiatric hold or something. She's obviously not okay. 3 times tonight I had to call the police dispatch, and somehow this woman evaded them. But then I guess they finally saw her. But then I saw her again a few minutes later, and I called the dispatch again, and they said that the police said that she wasn't in trouble. So, you mean to tell me that somebody's screaming at the top of their lungs at 3-something in the morning, not only a danger to themselves but disturbing other people, that's not a problem? So I guess at least street people and these crazies have rights, but the people that are just trying to have peace and quiet in their own homes don't. I mean, that's the message that I'm getting. And of course I tried to tell the dispatch that I was a YouTube content creator that was trying to go about her business of making her content, but it's really hard to film if you're going to have sound bleeding in that you don't want to be a part of it. I can't afford to do a bunch of soundproofing. I mean, maybe I could. Maybe if it's just like egg crates or something. I've had friends set up rehearsal studios in their apartments in Hollywood and stuff, and egg crates are very common. But I don't want to add to the messes around here. So dyeing this, I really do prefer to start at the back of the head. Now you really want to do this fast enough so it doesn't dry and get hard, because it can't continue to soak in your hair if it hardens up. And that's why when I finally do have my hair completed, I get a plastic bag that you would get from the grocery store, and I use them to seal my hair up. It also not only keeps the hair dye from drying out, these plastic bags also help seal the heat from your scalp in, and that helps the dye to penetrate. Because now I know the directions on these say to leave it in for 25 minutes, maybe 35, 45 minutes. But I prefer to leave them in all night and I sleep in it, because I go through the trouble to do this. I want the dye to last. So, and also another good thing about the plastic bag, when you sleep it in, it also protects your bedding from dye getting on pillowcases and stuff. Yeah, this smells kind of like blueberry, and or not blueberry, like grape, and kind of chemical-y in a good way. See, now that I see purple in my hair, I'm feeling more like myself. Now, if what you see on your computer screen looks blue, I assure you it's not blue. There seems to be something about digital photography and the color purple that it shows up blue. And there's a scientific explanation for that, because I did a search a couple years ago and I found out that no, it wasn't just me. I had a photo ID in Los Angeles that my hair looked absolutely blue, and now I know why. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't a hair dye color that maybe I shouldn't have used. It was just because it was digital photography. It's really important to make sure that you take partings all over the head and you don't miss a place. Sometimes areas I miss tend to be the area they call the bishop's cap, like a part of the scalp where a lot of men start their balding, like around here. Sometimes I miss those areas. And none of my roommates are awake, so I can't have anybody just spot me. See how much thicker this is than the stuff in the squeeze bottle? And this also, because it's so thick, it can dry out faster. So, of course, when you're doing it fast, there's always a chance that you get it more on your skin and gets on your ears. Certain things of it getting on your skin is kind of inevitable. And because I'm wearing rubber gloves, it makes cleanup a little bit of a challenge in the middle of the dyeing of the hair. Like, I know I've got a smudge on my forehead, but there's not much I can do about it now. Opening up a fresh jar. Want to see it? Isn't that a gorgeous color? Whoops. No, I don't want to cover up the heat vent from this computer. Okay, I'm going to get close to this mirror now. Can you still see me? Here, I better, here for this, let me adjust this. Can you see me? I also hope I don't step in a litter box doing this. That would really suck. Another thing it's important to do is, because you're going to make your hair wet when you do this, and because your hair is a little bit fragile because it has been bleached, you don't want to stretch your hair. If bleached hair will kind of stretch. The more damage it is, the more it'll stretch. And you don't want to break your hair off. One really great thing about these dyes is they're actually very moisturizing. These dyes, especially the Punky colors and the Manic Panic and dyes like that, are pretty much the equivalent of a hair conditioner mixed in with a dye. So you can leave a dye on this like this overnight and it's not going to damage your hair. Nothing about these dyes are damaging to the hair at all. The bleaching can weaken the hair, can damage it, but mostly the damage would be if you overlap. If you're careful not to put bleach on pre-bleached areas, you shouldn't have that problem. And as long as you don't do ill-advised things like brush your hair when it's wet or it's damp. It's all in how you treat your hair. Treat it kind of gently. Don't be rough when you're brushing it out. When I get tangled, when I get knots and things, I finger it out, starting at the ends and working my way up, because the last thing I want is hair breakage. And since I don't cut my split ends off, I just don't cut my hair. I want it to grow, and I like the fact that the ends are not even, because when I see people with hair that's very extremely blunt ends, sometimes to me it looks like a person just had somebody chop it off accidentally, like the hair got caught in a shredder or they had some kind of an accident or something. I've got a purple forehead. And I don't want to get those particular wet ones out because they're actually antibacterial. And I don't think that would be really good to get on a person's face. Okay. something about this purple forehead. Maybe I'll set this on the computer. I think it also goes without saying that it's a really, really good idea to brush your hair out really well before you do this. Especially if you keep your hair tied up during the day a lot, because if you repeatedly keep your hair tied up, and especially if you tie it up before brushing it out first, you probably have it tangled up some spots, and you don't want tangled up hair when you're applying this dye, because after you have your dye soaking in for a while, when you go to wash it out, if your hair is tangled, you're really going to have a tangled mess on your hair. Voice of experience here. Always make sure your hair is brushed out really well before you get it wet. It's also a good idea not to grab too much hair at one time. Even though it may take a little bit longer, it's good to, that way you can make sure that you're adequately covering all the strands of hair, especially when you're using a thicker product like this. I might not need to open up the packet of splat. Of course, that stuff is so runny. I've gotten that on my computer keyboard before. I've dumped it on carpet before. Yeah, that stuff gets everywhere. That's one of the occupational hazards of dyeing your hair with these dyes. They are going to get on things. Even with all the newspapers on things, it's really hard for the dye not to get on things. Sometimes when you're putting different colors of dye in, especially if they're colors that are more different, not just like different shades of purple, but if you were putting different colored streaks in that really contrasted with each other, sometimes I have clipped sections back, like when I do them, like say I had these were both the same and I didn't want them to mix in with other colors. You can always clip them together as you do them. Clip them, clip them, clip them. That's a technique that you can do. Now these colors are very, very, very similar, so it doesn't matter how much one piece touches another. But after this, I'm definitely going to have to go to the beauty supply place and re-up on my hair dye. I got plenty of bleach at least. Now there's another Punky color that I use sometimes. It's called plum. And the main difference between plum and the purple is the plum in the jar is so dark it looks black. And if I put that all over my head, that a lot of times does photograph blue in digital photography. And I find I need to give it a couple of washings before it stops looking blue. And also, when you take pictures in lower light situations, it looks kind of black. So, in other words, when I'm doing my twirl around there, and I know that I need to get a better spotlight so that it shows up better up against the wall. But, and eventually I'll do that. Oh, if you think that I'm potentially damaging my memorabilia here, I got 4 identical shirts. So, and yes, I did get them at his inauguration. Paid $5 a piece for them. Handed the guy who was selling shirts 20, and I got 4 shirts. And so by using this to protect my arms from getting stained by dye, I'm actually getting kind of like a tie-dye look on the arms. So I don't mind that. Oh, did you know that if any of my readers, viewers, excuse me, my audience watching this has a latex allergy, they have gloves that come in polyurethane also. So you can still protect your arm, your hands, even if you have allergy. I can think of other things that not only come in latex but come in polyurethane too. But I don't want to corrupt any kids that might be watching. See, with the thicker jar dyes like this, you really have to make sure you're covering it, because this is just not going to soak in as fast as a syrupy dye like this would. Sometimes you have to comb your fingers through like this to make sure that you really are saturating all your hair strands. Another advantage of doing this streak by streak is it's easier to see the areas that you missed because they stand out next to the areas that have had dye on them, and that really helps. Okay, now it's time for me to do the thing with the other mirror so that I could see the back. It would help if I didn't have dye on the mirror. Some more of this. Now, a lot of times what I end up doing with these, to get all the color out, I take scissors and I cut the container in half. Of course, you got to be careful not to nick your rubber gloves at the same time, because, and I've done that too, because if you do, you might not notice it until when you take your rubber gloves off, you find out that you got hair dye on your hands anyway, which would defeat the purpose of having the rubber gloves. So, okay, look at all this stuff. Most people end up wasting so much product just by throwing out the containers without doing this. There's probably no way you could squeeze everything out. Now, if you did screw up and you missed some areas, the actual effect could very well be like having streaks, like highlights in your hair. But I really do try to cover everything. Of course, later on, if your hair fades too much just in parts, you can reapply the dye to the faded parts. You don't always have to do an all-over dye job when it fades. Now, one thing all these dyes have in common is you do a final wash to get the color out. The last dye I used, I did an all-over dye job. The dye job I did without bleaching my roots first. That was a rinse-only dye. And I thought that I kind of liked it, and I mean, I liked the color, but it faded way too fast. Even taking into account the fact that I had that pool party, and you know, chlorine, what that can do to hair. So you guys can see better than I can. I'm going to see if I can feel to make sure if my scalp feels wet, I've got coverage. Dry spots obviously need more dye. Let me see if I can see what the back of my head looks like. There's too much dye on this mirror. And if there are little tiny spots that you miss, if it's all pretty much close to the same color, it's perfectly acceptable to massage the scalp and distribute the color better. As long as you don't tangle up your hair in the process, it should be fine. I'm guessing this is mostly done. What do you think? You see any white back here? Okay. Looks like I got it covered. Now, this is what I do to seal it in. I guess it's covered. Alright. Now I put it on top of my head. Kind of like that bun that I a lot of times wear around the house. And then I find that plastic bag that I know I had set aside here for this purpose. Thought I set the bag aside. Where the hell is it? Ah. You ever heard the old saying, go bag your head? Well, I like to tie a knot using the handles of the bag. And this really does seal the heat in on the scalp. I don't like to turn these inside out to take them off because I just wash them out and I reuse them until they get holes in them or something. I know I can't be the only one that reuses her rubber gloves. I mean, it's not like I'm dealing with hazmat or something. It's just hair dye. And then, of course, I gotta take the dye off my face. And after I do that, I will wash my face and I'll put my skincare on, and then I will clean up after the cats, and then it's going to be my bedtime because right now it's 4:22 in the morning, and I am going to not only sleep in this, but I'm going to keep it, since I'm going to bed late, not late by my standards, but I like to keep hair dye in at least 8 hours, at least. It doesn't damage your hair by soaking it in longer. You don't have to worry about any kind of damage. It just lasts longer if you do. As a matter of fact, you can also apply a blow dryer to the bag with your hair inside, and that, of course, heat will help the hair dye to penetrate. See, all I have to do is wash off this purple here, and that's how I dye my hair. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you like me and my content, I'd love to have you subscribe. And you do hit the bell so you don't miss anything. I publish new content Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for your viewing pleasure. Till then, talk to you soon. Bye.